The Haddenham Murder Mystery of 1828. So, this is the end. This is where the story of William Eden ended, in Thame churchyard, where he was laid to rest in the Eden family tomb. Aged 65, he had been murdered in Haddenham Fields on October the 25th, 1828. But where did this sorry story begin? And what is the true tale? Who was guilty? And who was innocent? Who told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And who did not? Who was this man, William Eden? He was a stout, hearty man, nearly 6 feet in height, giving rise to his nickname, Noble Eden. He was a market gardener by trade, a respectable and prosperous man, at a time when many were poverty-stricken in Thame where he lived, and in nearby Haddenham, where he was murdered on his way home from Aylesbury Market. He had a bank account at Rickford's Bank in Thame Marketplace. He had set off that fateful morning of October the 25th with his horse and cart to sell goods in Aylesbury, as he did every Saturday. But William did not have a good day. When he left Aylesbury, it was dusk, about 5 o'clock in the evening, and he still had some unsold trees in his cart, and also a load of 11 hundredweight of coal, which he'd purchased for 14 shillings and sixpence, a valuable cargo in those days. He set off home on the Turnpike Road, now known as the A418. What had he been doing in the intervening time? Thomas Bass, a lollipop maker and sugar boiler from Haddenham, can provide some of the answers.
I met William Eden in the Rising Sun in Aylesbury, about 4:30. We had a glass of gin and water, and he asked me to guide his horse back to Thame, as he'd forgotten his reins and wanted it led. We passed the Bugle Public House, but we didn't stop there. At Castle Dinton, William got down to relieve himself. He slipped, but he didn't fall.
I'm all right. You sure? I told you, go steady. Come on then, walk on, use your right.
We walked on for about a mile as the coal made the cart hang heavy behind. Then he got up on the cart and it was in balance. When we got to the crossroads between Cudderton and Haddenham, we parted company. But not before he told me that he'd been attacked on that spot just 12 months before, and an attempt had been made to rob him. I told him not to fear, and he replied he did not.
William Eden set off towards Thame in bright moonlight and was never seen alive again. By 8 o'clock that night, William Eden was found lying on the road by the miller of Notley, Henry Taylor. William was dead.
As I left Aylesbury at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, and when I came a little beyond Mr. Clark's mill, I saw a person lying on the road. His head was towards Cheersley. I asked who he was, but received no answer. Being alone, I thought it was a trap laid for me, and I was afraid to alight from my horse. I saw 2 men standing with black hats on by the hedge. The cart was about half a mile from the body. No horse was to be seen. I turned through a gap in the hedge and went home. I returned home and armed myself with a pistol. I found the body in the exact same position. I tried to move him. He was not stiff, but was quite dead. I then went to Haddenham and sent my servant, Dodwell, to call on Mr. Parish of the Green Dragon pub for help. He went to get the constable, and I led them back to where the body lay and found it in the same position. I saw nothing of the two people I had seen before. Put him on the cart now. The body was then taken to the cider house in Haddenham.
It is here, at the cider house pub closest to the scene of the murder, that the inquest began on Tuesday the 28th of October 1828. And after much deliberation and 2 adjournments, the jury came to a unanimous verdict that the deceased had been murdered by some person or persons unknown. What led them to that verdict? Who took them on the trail of the accused? Why did it take until August the following year to bring 2 suspects, Solomon Sewell and Benjamin Tyler, before the magistrates for examination? A succession of witnesses gave evidence at the inquest into William Edden's death, and although there were discrepancies in times and places, most told the same story, which pointed to murder rather than accidental death.
Henry Wells Reynolds, surgeon of Haddenham and Thame. I found a slight bruise and abrasion of the skin situated about 1.5 inches below the breast on the right-hand side. I found 5 ribs fractured. It must have been caused by a most tremendous blow. I found the right lobe of the liver ruptured. The blow, by whatever cause given, produced his death.
William King, straw plat dealer from Wilston, Hertfordshire. On Saturday night, I was travelling with my brother along the road from Thame to Aylesbury between 7 and 8 o'clock when I saw a cart without a horse. "Here lies his harness," I said to my brother. In a quarter of a mile, I saw something lying on the road, a man lying on his side. A short distance on the Aylesbury road, I met some men with a cart coming towards the deceased. I said, "Take care not to run over the man in the road." I did not get out my cart. It was my brother who saw the harness lying on the ground.
Thomas King, and I am aged 13. I heard the man on the road say, "Oh Lord, oh God." He did not move about, but he stirred his legs.
Reverend Thomas Hayton. I was coming from Crendon on Saturday evening when I saw a cart upset in the middle of the road. This was 20 minutes past 7. I picked up all the trees and put them back in the cart. I did not see the collar. I saw no person nor heard any sound whatever. I then went to Haddenham by the field route.
Sarah Edwards, housemaid. I saw two men on Saturday night, just before 7. They were going over the stile at the Tame Turnpike. I didn't know them. One was dressed in dark and the other in light clothing. They were going towards Aylesbury and they were going very fast. They were going about like persons dressed as tramps.
Mr. and Mrs. James Mears, friends of Mr. and Mrs. William Eden.
There were others with us that night, and we searched the roads and hedges for him.
The horse was not in the habit of kicking. I'd often gone with him. I do not think it possible that the horse could have drawn the cart with the weight of it over a body. There was no twist in the track of the cart as if it had been turned aside, and if he'd fallen under a wheel and it had gone over him, there would have been marks on it, because where he lay was as if mortar was made in it.
And if it had passed over him, it must have left marks of the dirt on his waistcoat or other clothes, but there were no such marks.
Sarah State, in service to Mr. Shrimpton at Crendon. Saturday evening, about 6 o'clock, I left Haddenham to go to Tame and Crendon. I went onto the Turnpike Road and I was alone. 3 men overtook me, about a mile from Haddenham. They said, "Let us all keep together." Then they asked me where I was going. I answered Tame and left the main road. I do not think I would know them if I were to see them again. I lost them as I walked on fast, fearful of them. I met 2 other men, about half a mile from the Turnpike Gate. I'm not acquainted with the roads, as I'm a stranger here, having come to visit my sister, who is in service at Haddenham. One of the men had a cap on. The other was dressed in light clothing, but I cannot positively swear they were the same men I saw before. They were walking in such a hurry. I met no cart, nor saw any more of the men afterwards.
So, where is the motive for murder? Who would want to get rid of noble Eden? One of the final witnesses thought he had the answer.
Last December, Mr. Eden was travelling from Aylesbury and he was set upon by people who tried to rob him. He came to my house very dirty and I washed his face. He went up to bed and I asked him who had done this attempt, and he said that one was a baker from Haddenham or Cuddington. Some days later, William Bailey, a baker from Cuddington, came past my house, and the deceased said, "That's the man who set about me, and I'd take my oath on it." I was in Cuddington, Sunday, 26th. Bailey and another person were standing by the churchyard wall, and I said to him, "What a serious thing it is that Eden was murdered." And he said, did I believe that Eden was murdered? He, Bailey, said that there was no doubt that those persons who set about him were the same as the year before, really upset him. He, the deceased, and others were at the Rising Sun, and he asked Eden for a lift, but in consequence of his cart being full of coals, he was unable to give him a lift. There were others there, and we noticed that the countenance of Bailey changed a great deal when I asked him these questions.
But their suspicions proved unfounded. Bailey was taken into custody in his own house on Sunday, but as he was able satisfactorily to prove an alibi by the persons who accompanied him from Aylesbury soon after the deceased left, and continued with him until after the body was found on the road, he was discharged that day. And there it ends, until 10 months later, when the 2 men, Solomon Sewell and Benjamin Tyler, were brought before the magistrates at the Petty Sessions, Aylesbury, on the 22nd of August 1829 on suspicion of murdering William Eden. Why these two men? What evidence was there to prove their guilt?